I'm Heather Dinich, and I'm chopping it up with Buck.
Hey, on this week's edition of Chopping It Up with Buck, I have with me Heather Dinich. Heather and I have known each other a long time. We used to be on the Experts together, which was a great show. But now she is the ESPN.com senior writer, ESPN insider for National College Football, reporter, studio analyst. So, Heather, my first question for you is going to be about college basketball.
Naturally, Buck. So my bracket is going to be picked on mascots and uniforms, just the way the recruits pick their teams.
You know what? We were joking coming on because I didn't get you on to talk about that. I mean, you have such a wealth of knowledge in college football, and sometimes I'll text you and we'll start having text chains with you and Andrea Adelson, another former, expert. But it's got to be crazy because this time of the year is when all that stuff starts happening, and it gets outrageously crazy for you. And every time I see you on, there's some breaking news.
Well, it's been a really fun time of year, honestly, for me, because it allows me to call coaches and just kind of catch up if they're getting ready for spring ball. And, it's funny because this. People always want you to make preseason predictions and picks. And I laugh inside because Nick Saban doesn't even know who his quarterback is. Kirby Smart doesn't know who his quarterback is. Brian Day doesn't know who his quarterback is. But I'll tell you who's going to win the national championship in college football right now today, as we sit here in March.
With all this realignment talk, the Big Ten doesn't have a commissioner. And you said it in one of your articles. It's not so much about the commissioners or the ADs. It's about the presidents and the chancellors. I was intrigued by that. Tell me what you mean specifically by that for college football realignment.
We were just talking on a news call at ESPN, and I was explaining to some people how my sources have changed. And when I started this job, as in covering college football, I used to talk to coaches and players. Now I talk to the suits of the sport and presidents and chancellors. And it's like, what? But they are the ones who make the decisions. And I think sometimes that's lost on college football fans because they're so engrossed with their team and the coaches and the faces of those programs. But it's the leaders of the entire university who vote and make the significant decisions as to whether or not to relocate their entire not relocate, but move their university into a new conference. And the bottom line, as it is everywhere, is how much money am I going to make? And while there is rampant speculation about the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, and what they're all going to look like, at the end of the day, those university presidents in the Pac-12 want to know, how much money am I going to make here in the Pac-12, and how much money am I going to make in the Big 12? And there are so many unintentional consequences that happen from these types of moves. But USC and UCLA are doing it because they think it's in their best interests. And at what point do leaders of universities separate what's in their best interest and what's in the best interest of college athletics as a whole? And how do they weigh that? And when you have Big Ten money being waved in front of your face as an opportunity, nobody's going to say no to that. Let's be honest.
We won't turn it down, right, Heather? If they come to us with a big
nobody's going to say no to that. But I also wonder, as college athletics moves forward, at some point, as we all sit down to Thanksgiving dinner, the more family members that come there, the smaller that slice of pumpkin pie is going to be going around the table. And so what do other university presidents in the Big Ten think about potentially expanding beyond USC and UCLA as far as revenue distribution goes? And the other piece that's often lost on people is the academic part of it. I mean, there is a very strong commitment within the Big Ten to only bring in institutions that are academically like-minded. And Can Stanford go? Absolutely. Some of these other schools, I don't know. I'm not throwing names out there, but the bar is high, right,
Yeah.
in terms of academics.
Yeah. I'm curious too, just as I go back, and I should have asked you this earlier. What got you in the sport?
I kind of got into it myself, really. I mean, my parents were Steelers fans, and they still are. That's why I'm a Steelers fan. But my first love was baseball, and
Okay.
I loved the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Oh,
And
man. Willie Stargell.
Willie Stargell. I have my prized possession is a framed picture of Bill Mazeroski crossing home plate, signed by him. 10-9. They beat the Yankees in the World Series. I mean,
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
I love them. But I think overall, having a brain that didn't like math, science, politics, on and on and on. I'm like, wait a minute, you mean I can write about sports and get paid for it?
Okay.
So, yeah, that
Well,
was
well,
it.
being a Steeler fan, I won't hold it against you, but I was an Oilers fan, so there was a natural rivalry. And then I was an Astros fan, so it's interesting. I always admired the Pirates because they would beat us and then get to the World Series, and then the Steelers, we couldn't kick that doggone SOB in, but it was still good to watch a program and an organization that had so much success. And also for me, I like the Steelers because they had a lot of black players, and they did that early. HBCU players and other guys that you guys all loved in the Iron City.
I can remember sitting at the dining room table in my parents' house and talking about wanting to be a baseball umpire when I grew up.
Okay.
And I remember my mom being like, Heather, you got to get your head out of this baseball dream world. And my dad said, Carol, she only works a couple months out of the year.
That's true. That's true. Oh man, yeah, and I think baseball was my first love as well. So it's interesting when you get into the sporting profession and you start watching, playing with guys like I did, and then starting to watch their kids, and that's what the cool thing about it. For you covering college football, what's been the best thing for you? I know you've gotten a chance to get to know the college football playoff committee intimately. You've got a lot of things happen in your career that are pretty cool.
Yeah, I think being able to transcend generation of coaches, going from the Bobby Bowdens and the Joe Paternos of the world to the younger coaches right now, like Ryan Day, I mean, Kirby Smart, like
Yeah.
these are coaches who have yet to hit their stride in the prime of their career, and also witness a generation of coaches that you might not get ever again. I mean, we used to go to the Nittany Lion on Fridays before Penn State home games, and Paterno would sit there and he'd take a pen and he would draw a single wing on the napkin and drink his whiskey. I mean,
Yeah.
be able to be there for that and
Yeah.
then go to the college football playoff national championship game, I think I'm very blessed and fortunate to have kind of crossed over those generations of coaches, I think.
And I think I'm right there with you. I can remember sitting in Bobby Bowden's office, and Jimbo Fisher was his offensive coordinator. And Bobby Bowden, we talked a lot about football, but he talked about family and life and so many other things. So it's interesting you say that because that was a generation, even guys like Terry Donahue, my coach, who's no longer here with us. You got the opportunity to sit with them, and they spent time with you. It wasn't a rush. Like you were going to go there. You had to make sure your Friday afternoon was open if you wanted to go talk to some of those coaches.
Yeah. And, I wonder if coaches now learned lessons from those coaches because it wasn't pretty at the end. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember writing articles about Bobby Bowden going through a lot of different issues at Florida State. And, when I was covering Penn State for the Center Daily Times, it was their worst season in school history. I mean, to put this in a perspective, like they wanted Kirk Ferentz as their head coach. Like that's what that's where it was. I remember there was like, oh, he was downtown. Everybody saw Kirk. So, and when Paterno went 3-9, that's when Frank Solich got fired at Nebraska, and he was 9-3.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it's crazy you bring that up, but I also think too, and I see this much more in coaches. We anoint guys a lot quicker as genius or next level. And you've had a chance to talk to a lot of coaches like I have. And some of them you can see they're on a meteoric rise, rightfully so. But there's others, to your point, who haven't gone through the issues that they're going to go through with players, and organizations, and boosters, and now NIL, to really understand how to manage that. And it's a tricky thing. That's why I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, because I think sometimes we push these guys so fast because they can X and O. But I don't know if it's X and O that they have to be able to do as well now. They still have to do it, but there's so many other things that are involved in coaching.
There's so many other things. And that's why coaches now have staffs that could, like fill a whole mall with employees. But you're right. There are so many different things, from compliance to branding. I mean, Clemson just opened up a whole new facility just for NIL and with a video and all this stuff. So keeping up with that. And then you've got Ryan Day just candidly saying, you know what, I'm going to step back for a minute and see if somebody else can call the plays so I could be a better manager in November and walk around and see what's going on everywhere else. Because it is. You just want to be a presence as a coach all around the building. And was he trying to do too much? At least he has the self-awareness to ask the question and give his OC a chance this spring to see what he can do. So, yeah, it's a lot, and the coaches have to want to do it. And, we see all the time where some coaches just don't like recruiting, and they wind up in the NFL because it's just not their thing. And other coaches are like, I got this. I live and breathe this, and you got the closers. So it's totally different. But you know what? They make the money and they earn it. So
I'm not feeling sorry for them either.
Right. I'm not crying any tears over the $10 million salaries.
Wow. Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on Chopping It Up with Buck with Heather Dinich. We'll be right back.
At Heslop Wealth Advisors, our goal is to help small businesses develop quality retirement plans for their employees through our Lunch and Learn seminars. We provide lunch and learning tools to help your company succeed and unmatched customer service.
All right, we're back on Chopping It Up with Buck, Heather Dinich. Heather, the college football thing is just so intriguing also, too, because when you look at it, we were talking about it before, the coaches and the salaries and their staffs. But this NIL, transfer portal and NIL have been two really big things. I know there's some things that the committees are trying to do to change, but how do you put the genie back in the bottle?
Can't put it back. It's a toothpaste, right? It's out. It's a mess. Like my boys, it's all over the sink, man. I think that anyone holding their breath for Congress to fix this is going to need to start blowing into a brown paper bag, because it's not going to happen. They can't even figure out everything else in the world. Let's just put it that. So, and by the way, I really don't believe that they want to do this. I sincerely don't think. And when you see headlines that say somebody in the House is talking about this and there's a press release, to me, that's posturing. That's, hey, look, I love college football. So, I don't believe that that's going to happen. Quite honestly, I think inevitably they're going to have to figure out a way to pay players. I just think it's trending in that direction with the Supreme Court's involvement, what we've seen to this point, and the NCAA trying to regulate this is also laughable to me, because it's just opened up and exacerbated loopholes that have been already there with boosters. Yeah. I think that it's just going to create a greater divide between the haves and have-nots, and all that goes to recruiting. And this goes right onto the field, because as we talk about an expanded college football playoff, the ones that are going to win are the ones that can rotate 2 and 3 offensive and defensive lines into late January.
Yeah, exactly.
So it all comes back to that recruiting and the NIL money and all that stuff, because I say that college football playoff expansion gives the appearance of fairness, because, we're talking about a lot of teams. That's great. Hey, congratulations, Tulane. You're in the thing. But we're going to be talking about the same teams in the semifinals and the national championship 99% of the time, I think, because of what I just mentioned, the depth in the recruiting.
Yeah. Well, now the other part to that, and I agree with you totally, the recruiting piece, the budgets to have enough analysts and all that. But what about a college football commissioner, a head of college football as a commissioner? Would that make a difference? I mean, what's your opinion on that?
My opinion on that is yes, it would. I would be wonderful at it. I will put in an application, post the job. But the reality of it is, good luck getting Greg Sankey to give up his power to one person and the new Big Ten commissioner and the Pac-12. These guys hold the power. I do not see them giving it up to one person unless they are that person. And that's not going to happen.
Well, the first person you named would be the one that I think could gain some kind of consensus. Right now, he's probably got the best, resume and the guy that everybody kind of looks to. Right? Does that mean everybody will bow down, so to speak, to him? I don't know.
Nope. No, it doesn't. I mean, there's a ton of respect from coast to coast for Greg Sankey, but there's a reason the college football playoff took so darn long to expand, and the Presidents were the one who ultimately did it. It was because the 10 FBS commissioners and Jack Swarbrick couldn't come to an agreement unanimously on how to do it.
Yeah. Well, you bring up another good point with that. With the expansion of college football, with everything that's happening, especially the playoff, what do we see happening if you just go out 10 years? I mean, you're talking to everybody, you're getting the chance to really understand how much more of an accelerated expansion could we see. I know we're at, where we are now, but I don't see it stopping there. Maybe I'm naive.
I think at the end of the day, when the presidents and chancellors who comprise the CFP's board of managers got this done, there was a $450 million reason as to why they should get it done quickly.
Right.
And there's going to be more money to be made down the line somehow on a 16-team playoff or whatever it might be. And so it wouldn't surprise me in the least if 10 years down the road, that's what we're talking about. But I can tell you that when on the Friday before Labor Day weekend, Mississippi State President Mark Keenum, the chair of the College Football Board of Managers, I asked him that question because he had a call with some reporters about going to 12 teams. And he basically said, never say never. We're not talking about that now, but left the door open. So I think it could certainly happen. And as long as there's more money to be made, there's going to be more consideration for a larger field, I think. But I promise you, they're not thinking about it right now. They're trying to figure out how to host these first round games on campus.
I hear you. Well, hey, one thing that you wrote recently, too, was about Notre Dame. I was really surprised that Andy Ludwig didn't take that opportunity and they went in a different direction. You were kind of following that closely, so I was reading and keeping up with it. Was it Andy Ludwig just saying, I don't want to do it, I can't take this position? Byron Leftwich was mentioned. There were a lot of names that were tossed around for that offensive coordinator opening.
There were a lot of names tossed around, but the two who really garnered the real consideration were Colin Klein and Andy Ludwig to start. And to be fair, I did not get Andy Ludwig's side of the story. So what I know from Notre Dame sources is that they were willing to pay the buyout. They were surprised by how much it was, and there was some confusion there with how much it was. But once they had figured it out, it seems as if Andy had gone back, had some conversations on his end, and it was already a no. So that's my understanding. And I know Notre Dame fans got hung up on the idea that they weren't willing to pay for that. But
yeah, I think that's what came out. I mean, at first I was like, Notre Dame can't. Yeah, and we all know they have enough money to pay.
Right. Let's think about this for a minute, just for a minute.
Yeah. Well, who? Just since you spent so much time, and I'm getting ready for spring as well, who are some teams you're kind of looking at to maybe be under the radar before the season starts and kind of show, not a predictor if they're going to win a national championship, but just teams that are kind of lurking that may have been close the last few years that are starting now to step up and maybe play a bigger role in the college football landscape?
Um, well, I think as far as under the radar, it's kind of unfair to call an 11-2 team under the radar, but people I think are undervaluing Washington again. And Kalen DeBoer has just done a terrific job there. And Michael Penix Jr. is coming back, and they were able to keep their offensive coordinator, which was huge. So staff continuity. And I talked to Kalen this spring. He's one of the coaches I talked to, just in terms of having that stability there. I think that they're in a really good position. But gosh, with USC and Utah, it's not going to be easy, obviously. But Florida State is a team. I'm secretly excited about the ACC race this year because of them scrapping divisions.
Yeah, I'm so happy they're done with that.
Men, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know how many coastal division scenarios we don't have to worry about anymore?
The always crazy coastal. It just seemed like every year you were like, okay, who's going
to? Every year.
Yeah.
But I also think if Florida State and Clemson are as good as people think they can be, or maybe want them to be, the ACC could have 2 playoff teams. Because if one of their losses is to each other and they wind up playing each other in the ACC championship game without divisions, and they're both 1-loss teams, it depends on what happens elsewhere. But
I want to go back to your Washington statement because UCLA played them well, and Washington still had a chance to win that game. And I tell people this all the time, Heather. If you've never been to the Pacific Northwest, try to go on a weekend when you can see UW, which the stadium is so loud. People are like, I'm saying no. It may not be SEC worthy, but everybody that has ever gone and said, man, that's unbelievable how loud they are, especially when they're playing well. Then go to it's not called Quest Field anymore, but where the Seahawks play. That stadium rocks. I mean, and they love football up there. It's just one of those things that it's so far out west that you don't understand how much of a football passion that they have in the Pacific Northwest.
It's on my bucket list. The 2 schools are on my bucket list. This is true. Washington and Army. I've heard going to a fall football game at Army is just gorgeous.
Oh, good. And see, and those are the things, I think to your point, getting a chance to go to different places and actually be in the stadium are so much more different. I know as much as TV has done justice for our game, being there live, I got to play in Nebraska my sophomore year, and Lincoln, they haven't been great, but they still sell out. It's just amazing how those folks follow and love football in certain parts of the country.
And they're so nice. They're so nice.
Hey, so we lose to them, but we don't lose bad. But as we're going off, great game, guys, great game. I'm like, y'all kicked our butt. Shut up. The next year we got them. But, of course, that was what they did. They are really nice.
And it keeps us young, right? Oh, my gosh. Going on college campuses. So fun.
Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with Heather Dinich.
At Heslop Wealth Advisors, our goal is to help small businesses develop quality retirement plans for their employees through our Lunch and Learn seminars. We provide lunch and learning tools to help your company succeed and unmatched customer service.
So we're back with Heather Dinich on Chopping It Up with Buck. Heather, I got to talk to you about the SEC also. Brian Kelly is saying, hey, he's not afraid to kick anybody's butt. Nick Saban is a little bit cautious, but I don't think he's afraid to play anybody. So what was all that stuff about? Is that just off-season conversation about the SEC schedule being changed a little bit?
I mean, the 9 games is more fun for fans. It's going to help with the college football playoff in terms of expansion and resume. And college football fans want to see LSU playing Alabama on a regular basis. So I think Saban was just wondering, hey, is this fair? How did you guys come up with this? Of course, if he has to do it, he's going to do it.
Well, one other question. I know Kevin has always brought this up, and I shoot him down. My producer, Kevin Tolbert. I'm really curious about Ivy schools since they started, especially Harvard, Princeton. Will they really be able to get back into the landscape of college football. I always tell them no, because they don't really care. They understand who they are, but will it also have people regretting NIL, and does it leave the smaller schools out, basically?
I don't know how much that will change because there's already such a disparity.
Yeah.
So I think in a way it could remain status quo as, sort of playing in the shadows of the big boys, which is what they've always done. But you've also got Harvard, Yale, you've got the history of college football with Princeton. So I think that you can't take that away. And also, they're smarter than all of us. They're going to figure it out.
Yeah,
they know things we don't know.
That's true, Heather. And a lot of times they're running all this behind the scenes and we don't even realize it. Well, what we like to do here too is we have a drill called the 2-minute warning, 2-minute drill. We march the ball down the field. I'll just ask you some quick rapid fire questions. So what music is in your Spotify, iPod, iMusic, Apple? What do you listen to these days?
I have everything. I have a wide mix of like hip hop, workout music, 80s music, hair band stuff.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, no, that's
everything
good.
Everything but country. No twang.
No country. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that offline. I don't want to break your flow on that. There's a couple of good country artists, but I'm not going to say who they are right now because you don't like country. All right. Well, if you're in Maryland, this is probably easy. So I'm not going to throw crab cakes in there because I love those. Fish or steak?
Steak.
Okay. How do you like it done?
Medium well, wrapped in bacon. I got 2 boxes in my freezer right now.
Yeah, Heather's marching down the field. We know she likes steak. That's good. I like that. If you were the commissioner for college football, what would be the first rule that you would change about college football?
Every national championship would be at the Rose Bowl.
Oh, Heather, you just had a big strike down the field. You got my heart on that one. Tell me why, because I tell people all the time, Heather, I didn't get to play in the Rose Bowl, so I can't claim that, but I played there every home game. One of the best places to play a game, watch a game. Why say you?
So I have a great appreciation for history as it relates to sport and life in general. It goes beyond the scene and the setting. It goes all the way into the hearts of the people in the city of Pasadena. And as you go through it, there are so many things I think just would be really special.
And I know Jackie Robinson didn't actually play his home games, but I spent time there too. And the last time I was there, I stayed downtown Pasadena, which I hadn't done since I was in school, when we would go the night before games. And to go see his mural and his statue with he and his brother, I mean, it's pretty special. Did you get a chance to go to the Rose Parade? Also, I've never done that, but I've heard that's such a great affair as well, and something you have to attend once in your lifetime.
When I was in college, I went with a friend who was from Southern California, and she and I met at Northwestern's journalism camp, and I went out there. And we camped out on the sidewalk. We got our spots. We volunteered, put some roses on some floats as volunteers. And it was amazing. And I told Hannah Storm in the green room one day, I was like, how do you get that job that you get to be a commentator for the Rose Bowl?
Oh, it's great, isn't it? It's awesome.
Amazing. Is there a better job?
Oh,
it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. And everybody that has ever gone says the same thing, just how cool it is. I mean, you got to be there early and got to camp out, but it's one of the coolest things that you can have. Well, yes. Hey, you scored a touchdown there. You just went down the field in that Rose Bowl conversation. I had to let you score on that one. So, Heather, we appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll have to do it again, especially as we get closer to the college football season. And then I'll make sure to ask you about basketball too, since you love it. So now, you and I are in the same spot. I haven't even started my bracket. So when somebody asks me, I'm like, I'll tell you who I think is good, but it's only for 2 weeks, maybe a week worth of watching basketball.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw some darts. Copy out Pete Thamel's paper. We'll see.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.